This book, consistent with polyvagal theory, presents an optimistic perspective for those with autism and those who support their personal journey. This perspective emphasizes that many of the features of autism may not be locked to a genetic unfolding. Rather, they may depend on adaptive autonomic reactions to threat. By moving the causal model from genes to autonomic state, clinically relevant questions move from genetic screening, with an unfulfilled promise of remediation, to neural exercises that can functionally rebuild autonomic state flexibility and resilience. For example, in this book, Dr. Sean Inderbitzen proposes neural exercises that challenge autonomic regulation via withdrawing and re-engaging the vagal brake, which would promote a general enhanced state of regulation observable in behavior, emotion, and physiology. When I started my academic career in 1970, autism was considered a relatively rare disorder that was assumed to be characterized by two features: 1, permanence of the disorder, and 2, a genetic basis. These plausible assumptions biased and limited the research questions and the explanations that both researchers and clinicians could use to describe their observations, in both the laboratory and the clinic. The scientific community, as well as my first publication mentioning autism, readily embraced these assumptions, which had consequences on research funding. Funding priorities within the National Institute of Mental Health reflected this transition, prioritizing projects involving molecular genetics in a concerted effort to identify a genetic substrate. This diverted funds from other, more flexible, optimistic perspectives that might be conceptualized as neural exercises to optimize the life experiences of those with an autism diagnosis. This decision was costly to the science of understanding autism and to the autism community. Under these assumptions, when clinicians and researchers observed that an individual, via maturation or intervention, no longer reached criteria for autism, they were confronted with the consensus view that the initial diagnosis was faulty. This perspective had great impact on intervention models, interpretations of research findings, and even the astute observations of clinicians who were effective in optimizing the function of their autistic clients. Explaining to colleagues or parents that an individual no longer reached diagnostic criteria following an intervention or with maturation challenged clinical researchers in how to disseminate this information. If they proposed that the intervention functionally normalized the previously diagnosed autistic individual, then they could be accused of claiming to cure autism.